Hey, what's going on, guys? Doing something a little bit different today. I got called out to do some chasing this weekend, some RC planes, which I've been getting a lot more into now that I've got some more friends that fly fixed wing, and now that my eyes are doing good enough that I'm back into the drones. So I was chasing with my 5-inch Remix, and then I decided that that's definitely not going to be fast enough to keep up with even like slow RC airplanes. So what I went ahead and did is build this guy, which is Remix V2 with 6-inch arms, Brother Hobby 2808 1500 kV motors, and these are the actual like FR group buy motors that I got probably a year ago. Running the Dow 7056 clear props, which they're okay. They're a little bit kind of flexible, so I don't know if I'm going to stay using these or not, but I'm kind of playing around with camera angles and trying to get the props as much out of view as I can. But many of you guys know the Remix is like my absolute favorite frame. The noise profile on it is super clean. It doesn't really require a lot of tuning, but it will also take a lot of tuning if that's what you want to do. Got these little kind of anti-vibration gummy skid plate mounts off of Amazon. The GoPro 7 gyro data is like super sensitive to high frequency noise. So if you're trying to use real steady, which I might be, it's hard to get it to play nice. And so I've used this a little bit just in some testing. It seems to work okay. You kind of really want more like low frequency movement for the GoPro to move around more, and that actually gets you better results with real steady. For today, I was just shooting in regular 4K 60 with hypersmooth on. So I didn't really do a whole lot of stabilization or cropping or anything in post. I did shoot in wide, which in the future, I'm either going to add a riser to this to get the GoPro up even higher, or I'll probably start shooting in super view and then dynamically crop in post so that I can keep things in frame more. So anyway, 3300 6S on this. It flies absolutely amazing. It's an old Hobby Wing 60 amp stack. A G4 from like 2 or 3 years ago. Doesn't black box log because it's been in another remix I've crashed a million times as a 5-inch. So I just kind of threw this together to see if it was feasible, number one, and number two, how much of a performance benefit I would get, you know, over a 5 or a 6, but not yet going to an 8, which, you know, I'm working on that project too. So I'm really happy with it. It flies just like a Remix. It still freestyles. With the 3300, it's light enough that it's nimble, but you can lean on it for 5 or 6 minutes, chasing stuff pretty fast. I was playing with the camera angle, kind of putting it down when I filmed the Tundra, which was a mistake, and then putting it up, trying to get, you know, like some jet footage when I was chasing the Panther. So I'm going to go ahead and cue this up and just kind of narrate voiceover what I was thinking while I was flying today. Well, actually 2 days ago. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to play this, and then I will drop myself in the corner. So yeah, Alvin was on the Viper, and Daniel was on the Yak, like a profile foamy. The Viper just went by. I'm taking off trying to chase it. Alvin and Daniel and I have flown together a few times, so we're pretty good about communicating kind of what they're going to do and what I'm going to do. Needless to say, this Viper is really small. I think it runs on 4S, but we're talking like 2-foot wingspan. It's super hard to chase. So I'm really leaning on it with the Remix here, trying to keep the throttle up and trying to keep the Viper in view. I'm doing a pretty good job. They're communicating with me fairly well, so I kind of know what to expect. Banking into the turns early is nice, and later on you'll see that I'll start to kind of throttle up and hold that line and look back at what I'm trying to keep in frame, which is, I think, a good technique for compensating for the turns. And there went the Yak with Daniel. I will also say that we're really spoiled with quads because they're so absolutely stable, versus when you watch the fixed wings, they just bounce around so much. Later I chase a bigger Tundra, which we'll get to that, and it's like almost a 2 meter, way easier to chase. So the Yak I like because it's a little bit slower, and since it's a profile, there's not a whole lot of airfoil to the wing, so it kind of behaves a little more predictably as far as wings don't stall, and it doesn't kind of pitch weird when the wind hits it. It just, you know, basically is flying on angle of incidence alone, which oddly enough makes it a lot easier to chase. So He's being nice to me too. He's not leaning on the throttle right now. There we are right there in the middle. Right there, Alvin came in and he landed the Viper and didn't know Daniel was in the street and like bounced off the street, bounced off of Daniel and into the curb. Totally destroyed the Viper, so I had to get down there and get the official incident report documented on camera, you know, for insurance purposes. It was real cloudy. We thought it was going to rain. They were saying storms all day and it never really did. There I came in a little too hot. It's kind of like a balancing act of trying to get up to the subject quick enough and anticipate their speed and then not overshooting. Part of the reason I started that 8-inch project with the gimbal is so if I do come up on somebody hot, I can pitch back with the quad and slow down, but that won't change the angle of the camera itself, so the subject will still be in view, which I think will be a huge advantage. You won't get this pitch bobbling as I'm trying to match the speed perfectly. Yeah, there I just totally lost him when we had to cut. This is later in the flight. This is a nice little orbit. I'm kind of proud of that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I think it was pretty cool. Again, it's slow enough that I can do this type of work, you know, the orbiting and just kind of play around with it where I'm not fighting to catch up to it the whole time like I would be on a 5-inch or even a 6-inch. I would have been with the 5-inch Remix, even on the Bitmata 2100 kV motors on 6S, I was still like 2/3 throttle the entire time, running the S4, which is a pretty aggressive 5-inch prop, just to keep up. And on this, you know, I'm 30-40% throttle most of the time, and just real easy. And then if I need to, I can lean on it and catch up really easily, or get ahead of them to do an orbit or a look back. I think here the yak's probably coming in. Yeah, no gear on that, so you just kind of belly land it, just skid plate it the whole way. But you can see that the Remix still has plenty of power with the 1500 kV on 6S, and it retains a lot of that agility. I mean, you can freestyle it a little bit, which I think later in the video I had to kill the end of a pack and I just ripped it around. Yeah, super fun. What do we got? Oh, this is Benny's T28 trainer. This thing, they got it at a swap meet like 2 or 3 years ago, rebuilt it, repainted it. It's probably got like 200 flights on it, and it looks amazingly well after they recoated it. It's got like a black paint Russian theme on it. It flies really nice for how beat up it was when they got it at the swap meet. I didn't see it when it first got purchased, but I've heard the stories that it is completely trashed. So I think Benny and Daniel did a really good job refinishing this. I like the little Russian stars on the wings. It's also cool, sometimes you can see the prop will spin like at exactly the refresh rate of the GoPro, and it'll almost look like it's still, which, I don't know, I'm a sucker for those type of things. But again, you can see how much it's bobbling around, and that's in safe with the gyro on. It's, I think, a 1.1 meter, so we have fairly calm wind, but it still just gets bucked around a lot compared to a quad that, you know, is running like a 4K PID loop or an 8K PID loop. I tried to play around with a lot of orbiting on this go around and kind of pitching myself back at some funny angles to get like look backs. Again, it's just trying to balance that camera angle. There's the T28 coming in. So that if I've got enough up angle, I'm quick enough, but then you kind of lose the ability to shoot from above because you end up with a high camera angle and then looking down on the subject, you're tilted basically vertical where, you know, you're at full throttle just to maintain altitude. So it's kind of a balancing act. I'm still feeling that out, and that's where I think the gimbal will come into play a lot for just some of these smooth chasing scenes. Granted, that's going to take like the split S and power looping style maneuvers off the table if I do lose them. Trying to catch up to them. Here's the Panther, Daniel's Panther. This was cool. It's an EDF. It's pretty small, still a little sketchy in the wind, but flies pretty smooth. I was able to get some pretty tight shots, and surprisingly enough, being in the EDF jet blast or fan blast, really like no effect on the quad whatsoever. I got right up on it a few times, and you know, other than visually knowing where I was, couldn't tell flight characteristic wise. It performed fine. he was trying to do some stall turns here and stuff. We weren't necessarily on the same page for some of these maneuvers, and the plane wasn't necessarily cooperating when we would get into a stall. The EDF would kind of run out of power, or would kind of catch the wind funny. But I was doing a pretty good job keeping up with it. There's a low pass by everybody again. It definitely looks cool. I like chasing planes. This is probably, I don't know if I like chasing them or flying them more, honestly, at this point. Like, I've really had a good time doing this the last couple of weeks, and I can't thank these guys enough for inviting me out and letting me chase everything that they got. Doing another low pass. I think we get really, yeah, he brings it really low here. The 7-inch really does make a difference. I can't wait to get the 8 up and running. I've been running into some problems with that. I rebuilt it twice now. It was a sloppy, it was my old long range. I almost blazed him right there. It was my old long range floss. And so I kind of threw it together with the gimbal and did some tuning. Worked out okay. I think what I'm going to do is take the gimbal off and fully tune it to where I want it to be and fly it like that for a little bit and just see there I'm right on him and no effect from that fan at all. You can see he's got his run cam clipped to the bottom, which gets a really cool nose wheel angle. Oh yeah. There I'm trying to get that look back, kind of just paralleling him. You know, so much of the chase footage is like literal chase footage, but I don't think it has to be that way. As I get better, I'm going to try and incorporate some better camera angles to get some better shots. There he's coming in. On the sidewalk, which that was tough, because that sidewalk is not that wide, and that plane scoops pretty good. So, kudos for not hitting anything on that one, on that land. Here's that big Tundra that I was talking about. This is Benny's Tundra. Really big. You can see how much more stable it is in the air, which really makes my job easier. Being able to just track it smoothly, and it's not doing anything erratic, bouncing around too much. I was able to get closer without feeling like at any moment it's going to get bucked by a wind gust and I'm going to run straight into it. So yeah, that was definitely fun. There's some guys down at the end of the street running motorcycles, doing wheelies and donuts, and you can see from the road that's probably what goes on out here when we're not here. But it's a pretty cool spot. A little slow flyby with the Tundra. I actually lowered the camera angle on this to maybe like 5 or 10 degrees because I was anticipating it being a big bush plane, that it was going to be, you know, slow. And yeah, that was totally, I screwed the shit out of that because it's faster probably than the EDF. I think later on he puts the flaps down for me, which helped me get closer and kind of negotiate some better angles. I will say flying with a lower up tilt for chasing, I think, is the way to go, which is totally contrary to the way I thought it would be. But it really lets you get more yaw action without having roll coupled with that because of the higher camera angle. And it allows you to get above the subject a lot. You can see in a lot of shots in this, I'm at the wing line or above, which on a higher up tilt is like almost impossible. And it also makes these look back shots a lot easier. You know, if you're freestyling, you want that up tilt. So when you're doing a look back or like a whoop-de-doo, you know, or a matty, you've got that cheater angle where you can kind of see behind you. But when you're chasing, that's like the opposite of what you want, because you don't want to see behind you. You want to fly backwards, but still see in front of you. So, yeah. Learning on that one. The Tundra was smooth, though. I think he went up and like did a stall turn there and I lost him. Yeah, a little wiggle waggle there. It was a good time. You know, now that I know I'm going to be doing more of this, I'm going to really... the remix now is done. New capacitor, rebuilt. I'll probably put a new flight controller in it at some point so I can black box log, but, you know, just feel tuning it is good enough for me now where, I mean, I lean on it a lot here. There's a little bit of jitter at the top end. I reduced the filtering You know, I was running like a 0.8 to be safe because I didn't know how much motor heat I was going to get when I started tuning, since I didn't have a noise profile, but I know the frame is clean. So I went back to, I think, a 1 and a 1 or a 1.1, 1.1 on gyro and D. And then I think I'm at like a 1.1 on the master and a 1.1 on PDD gain. So I've got a little bit more D than P. Everything else is pretty much stock. I'm not running dynamic idle. Again, nothing too fancy because I can't see what's going on. So I just really wanted it to be a performer that I knew I could count on. And yeah, he almost blazed me. They called that out, like, oh shit, and I was in the goggles chasing it, and I'm like, oh, that's gonna totally hit me. And he veered to the right and ended up popping the cowl off. Luckily, no major damage, but thanks to Benny for not hitting me with that giant tundra, because that probably would have sucked ass. I think this might be the one where I kill the pack freestyling. So I'll probably turn up the motor noise here in post so you can hear it a little bit for anybody that's interested in the tune sound of the quad. There's like full speed. It's not the fastest thing, 7-inch props on 1500 kV, but I mean, it's probably still good for, you know, 85, 90, you know, for a good stretch. The nice thing is when you really lean on it, it doesn't just absolutely sag the battery out like 1850 or 1900 kV would. And you don't end up with the honk props, even on this super soft Al 7056. Like no bounce back there. I know Hypersmooth is on, so you really can't tell, but even with some pretty sharp stick inputs, they're invert, Yasmin, it does feel a little sluggish. I could probably push the tune a little bit more to crispen it up, but that's not really what I'm interested in. I want no motor heat where I can lean on it and have smooth footage. So if I'm sacrificing a little bit of sluggish control feel, you know, I'm not planning on doing any snap flips or rolls or anything crazy with it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, totally love this thing. Yeah, let me stop that. Okay, so totally love this thing. Back to using my little GoPro foamy Huggy Dealy, which is amazing. If you turn on stereo on the GoPro for sound, you just get, I mean, you actually get stereo sound. Ha, makes sense. But it sounds much better. You get the motor noise cleaner, which I like a little motor noise in my videos. I'm a sucker for a tuned quad, so for me, I don't really hardly ever just dub everything out and go straight to music. I like having a little motor noise in the background. But yeah, old ass remix. The frame is 4 or 5 years old. It was my freestyle rig for a long time. It's actually the second remix I ever built. And 6-inch arms. You can fit, you know, huge motors on here if you wanted. I think the 2808 or a 2810 would be probably as big as you want to go. 7-inch props work fine. If you had a standard remix GoPro mount, the one that mounts to the horizontal crossbar above the camera cage, what you'd want to do is print that section a little bit taller to get the GoPro up here. The factory, like Brain 3D or any other GoPro mount you order, the prop on a 7-inch prop is going to hit the outer edge of the GoPro. I mean, it's really, really close, but if you have any flex in the blade, it's going to hit. It's going to hit. There's no way around it. If you were run like a Session or a DJI Go or something, totally wouldn't have that problem because it's a little square dealy. But I think what I want to do is get a regular GoPro mount printed that has a taller center section so I can use the regular GoPro and just build a 7-inch freestyle of these. I have like 3 or 4 of these frames lying around because it's the best frame in the world. I'm sorry, it really is. And yeah, so I'm probably going to do that at some point. But this thing is done. This is going to be my workhorse chase rig in the near future. I'm going to try and get that 8 situated and probably fly it without the gimbal for a while and see how much benefit I gain running a 3300, maybe a 4000 or a 5000 6S with 8-inch props, 1300 kV, 2812s for speed and flight time. I can tell you right now, it is smooth, and those 2812s by Zenova XN OVA, amazing motors. I think it's going to carry its weight in cruising at a lower throttle point, and for smoother shots where I'm not split edicing around, trying to chase something really nimble, like bigger planes or formation flying, I think that's going to be the go-to and getting a little bit longer flight time. But other than that, this thing is going to be where it's at. If you guys like it, build one. I'll put the parts list in the description, but it's really pretty simple. Remix V2, 6-inch arms, as big as you want on the motors, 7-inch props. And then originally I just had a regular GoPro mount, the little adhesive ones that come with the GoPro, stuck to the center of the frame, mount the battery on the bottom, and I just run 2 battery straps through the clamshell hatch area. One in the back just behind the stack and one in the front just in front of the stack. The narrow, like Project 399 or Flywoo Pyro Drone straps, the really skinny ones, work perfect. They don't end up hitting the stack at all. And I have a Vista wedged in there too, guys. A Vista on a Remix, wedged in the clamshell, yes. Been doing that for years. It's a tight fit. With the stack turned sideways, I have the ESC pads fore and aft. I just put a little piece of tape over there just in case anything gets pinched when I'm closing the clamshell, so I don't get, you know, Vista on motor pad contact, because that would probably be bad. But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you guys like this, something different. Instead of typing out like a 67 paragraph description in the video on YouTube that nobody ever reads, I figured I would just do a voiceover. And it's storming out and I have nothing better to do. So thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time.